And it's not that hard these days to get a virtual assistant for even
No.
just a few hours a week to take
Yeah.
some things off your plate. Make sure that you're outsourcing what you can, your bookkeeping or some of your correspondence. Get some help with managing your emails. I hired a person to help me get an AI tool to organize my email inbox because I found I was spending like an hour or two a day just sifting through stuff. And it's like,
Yeah.
this is just crazy. And
Yeah.
I spent a little bit of money getting this tool, and I'm saving myself at least an hour a day.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was just talking the other day about doing this podcast. But used to take my team about 5 hours to produce the show on the backside of an interview. I think takes less than 2 hours at this point. And so it's amazing what tools can help us be much more efficient in what we put out into the world.
Yeah, but you do have to kind of stop what you're doing and assess how
Yes.
you're spending your time.
Yeah.
You're not going to get out of the weeds and the doing this and being overwhelmed unless you can
Unless
just
you
stop
pause.
and say, okay,
Yeah.
wait a minute. And you need to be able to be somewhat objective
Yeah.
about how you look at how you're spending your time.
Hello, my extraordinary women friends. Have you ever poured your heart into building something from the ground up, only to face an unexpected pivot that asks you to begin again? That's exactly the kind of conversation we're having today with Raul West, a seasoned entrepreneur who built and sold an 8-figure business and now helps others do the same without losing their life in the process. One of the things I teach is that it's not enough to grow a business. You have to fall in love with it. That means designing for both time prosperity and wealth prosperity. It means building a business that gives you freedom, joy, and the space to live your life fully, not just work in your business around the clock. That's exactly what we dive into at the 11th annual Extraordinary Women Ignite conference happening this November in Colorado. Ignite is where bold vision meets soul-centered strategy, where women entrepreneurs raise up their voice, their visibility, and their businesses for greater impact. Early bird registration is now open at cammiegelner.com/ignite. In today's episode, Raul and I talk about what it really takes to scale a business without losing yourself in the process, how to step back from daily operations, why entrepreneurs get stuck in the weeds, and how to reclaim the freedom you set out to create in the first place. We talk mindset, systems, and redefining what success actually looks like and what it means to live the dream in business and life. Let's meet Raul West to Extraordinary Women Radio. Well, welcome to Extraordinary Women Radio, Raul. It's so awesome to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, tell us, where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining you from Sitka, Alaska, which is
Ah,
down in Southeast Alaska.
yeah, we were just chatting about that. It's on an island, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's a very large island.
Very
Um,
cool.
and
Very
we're just west of British Columbia.
okay. Excellent. Excellent. Well, how's the weather up there these days?
It's, in the low 50s and got some sunshine today, so not too bad.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I want to dive in with your journey. I want to start with your journey. And I think one of the things that jumped out at me when I was looking through all of your information was you built an 8-figure business and eventually sold it to Alaska Airlines. So tell us a bit about that journey.
Yes, okay. Well, that journey started shortly after I moved to Anchorage. I grew up in Seattle
Mm-hmm.
and started my residency in Alaska in 1980 in a town called Ketchikan, which is even further south than Sitka. But after about a year there, I decided to move to Anchorage and become an entrepreneur. And about a year after I did that, I met a guy who had a little office across the hall from my little office in Anchorage. And my first clients, I was doing marketing consulting, specializing in tourism since I'd grown up in a tourism family.
Mm-hmm.
And some of my first clients were businesses located in Hawaii who were selling their products to Alaskans. So a
Okay.
hotel chain, an inter island air carrier, a rental car company. And this guy across the hall saw me going off to Hawaii on business trips. And he said, I'd like to go to Hawaii on a business trip. How do you do? Anyway, he started picking my brain, and his background was real estate. And so he figured out a way to combine real estate with travel. And he started representing Alaskans who own condos in Hawaii. And a
Mhm.
lot of Alaskans do feel like Alaska or Hawaii is their, second home.
My sister-in-law is actually from Hawaii, so absolutely. I
Yeah.
was just mentioning I have my brother-in-law and my sister here this week, and my sister-in-law, and they're both from Eagle River, Alaska, and she is
Mhm.
originally from Hawaii, so I totally get
Yes.
that.
Well, the 49th and 50th states, they have quite a connection.
Yeah.
So, so anyway, I started giving him advice about how to, not just represent the condo owners, but package it with the inter island air and the rental cars and so forth. They happen to be the clients I represented. And then finally I said, this is what I do for a living. So you can't just keep getting this advice for free. You're going to need to pay me. And so he says,
Right.
okay, I'll take you out to dinner. And
Well,
yeah,
that's
so
not.
we've spent the past 40 years arguing over whether that was our first date or not. But he finally acquiesced, like, yes, that was our first date. But not too long after that, we got married. And then his company was growing. And he was starting to package it with the air going from Alaska to Hawaii and
Yeah.
buying the seats on scheduled air carriers. But one year, the scheduled air carriers pulled out of the market. And so there were
Mm.
no direct flights from Alaska to Hawaii anymore. And we went, oh my God, how are we going to get all of our guests to Hawaii to enjoy their condos and their packages? And that was a very bleak time for us. And we considered
Mm.
closing the doors.
Mm.
But it's like, no, no, no. The people of Alaska, need Hawaii. So we have to figure this out. So my husband found a plane that had some time available on it. It was doing a charter between Alaska and Japan. And on the back side of that charter, the plane was sitting in Anchorage for a while. So he said, he went to the air carrier and said, can I charter that plane to do Anchorage, Honolulu flights? And we worked out a deal, but they wanted us to guarantee it and put up a letter of credit. We didn't have the money because we'd been scraping by and making payroll on our personal credit cards at that point. And so we turned to his mother, who was a school teacher, but she had a retirement fund. And she pledged her retirement fund as
Oh
collateral
man.
for our letter of credit. So,
Wow.
yes. So my husband, who was a very good salesman, became an extraordinary salesman at that particular
Because he
point.
needed to.
Yes, he was not going to let his mother down. So
Yeah.
we did very well on that charter. That was actually a summertime charter. And most of our friends and associates said, you're crazy. Why would
Yeah.
you charter in
Yeah.
the summertime? Alaskans like to stay in Alaska for the summer. But, I had my trusty spreadsheets and I analyzed the numbers of what we had actually done in previous summers. And I said, no, we've got enough market to fill these planes. We've done it before, so we
Wow.
can do this. And so it was a gamble, a huge gamble, but a calculated one.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning of chartering more and more jets. We were chartering wide body jets pretty soon, 767s, L1011s, I mean, 200, 300 passengers per plane. And it just kept growing and growing. You could say that our business kind of took off.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to
Totally.
and we were the mom and pop. I kind of let my business go by the wayside at that point. Is okay. I
Hmm.
need to spend my time and attention on this puppy here.
Yeah.
We've got a lot at stake. So we were mom and pop, up to our eyeballs in running the business. We had a young daughter. She had to do her homework at the office after school because we weren't in any way ready to go home. And so we'd
Yeah.
eat McDonald's and pizza and stuff at the office for dinner. It was terrible. And we're just like, oh my God, we can't keep going this way. We're, exhausted entrepreneurs. So I started learning. I went back to college to get a degree in organizational management, and I started
Hmm.
learning about organizational culture and total quality management and all of this. And every time I'd come to the office after going to class, I said, okay, this is what I just learned, and this is what we're going to do. And our executives were just like rolling their eyes back and going, oh my God, what is she going to make us do now? But we started just working on the business
Mm-hmm.
working on systems. And then one of our early mentors was Robert Kiyosaki. We'd been taking classes from him since the late 80s in Anchorage. It was
Wow.
before he wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Uh-huh.
And we happened to have lunch with him in on the Big Island in Kona one June. And he said, okay, you guys have to get these books. And he said, get the E-Myth by Michael Gerber and get The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack. So we were flying to Honolulu that afternoon. We went to the bookstore on our way to the hotel, got those books, started reading them. By the time we returned to Anchorage, we had finished the books and said, okay, now this is the roadmap. This is what we're going to do. And those books really helped us revolutionize the way we ran
Wow.
the business.
Wow.
And we
From an
started,
operational perspective.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
creating the systems, making sure
Yeah.
that our team was empowered and had the direction and the guidance. And my husband used to say, it's like a road in Hawaii, in Alaska in the wintertime. We got to put up the snow fences on either side of the road. And as long as they stay on the road, they're
Mm-hmm.
good. So, and Robert used to call it the fruit bowl theory of business, where you have a bowl that's made of wood or glass or metal or whatever. And, that bowl stays firm in its shape, but the fruit inside the bowl can, be any combination.
Right.
So
Right.
we guided our team with that kind of concept
Oh,
with,
wow. I
look,
like that
you know,
visual, right?
yeah, we're gonna give you the parameters, and as long as your decisions and your actions stay within these guidelines, we'll support you.
Yeah.
Go. And so that was empowerment, and they loved it because they loved having that authority and responsibility, and they thrived on it. And we also made sure that it was a win-win. So when the company won, all of our team won. Big bonuses. I mean, sometimes we would even have a weekly or bi-weekly goal, and then we'd pass out $100 bills at the staff meeting when we met the goal, and that was really exciting for everyone.
Oh, fun. And then you eventually sold this
Yeah,
business.
we kept growing it and growing it, and about 5 years after we read those books, we were able to hire a CFO and a COO, and we could step back. And we bought our second home on Maui. We bought a yacht. We started enjoying our lives, and those two guys ran the company, grew the business to 8 digits in annual revenue. And then several years later, we were able to sell it to
Yeah.
Alaska Airlines.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
that's
the
and
story.
that's some of your theme of moving from operator to owner to really
That's right.
shifting that is what you saw happen there.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
so now that's what I'm teaching people how to do in a much
Yeah.
more condensed time frame than it took
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you had a lot of lessons that you learned along the way, I'm sure.
Yes. Yes. So
Yes.
you don't have to make the same mistakes we did.
Yeah. 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 No, I love that. So then when you sold, that's when you built your Raw West Living the Dream.
Actually, didn't start that until just 2 years ago.
Oh,
And we
okay.
sold the
Okay.
business 17 years ago.
Okay. So
So
you had some, what did you do in between there then?
we started buying and leasing small cruise ships.
Uh-huh.
We did that
Hmm.
for about 12 years. And then we got into a multifamily real estate and in syndications and started investing in apartment complexes across the United States. So we still have several businesses.
Yeah, yeah, excellent.
So
So
we,
tell us more about your Rail West Living the Dream business. How did that all unfold?
that was really the result of people telling me, you need to teach people how you've created this life. And they
Okay.
all say, you're living the dream, Ral. We want to do what you and John do. You're traveling all over the place. You have this, the Maui home, the yacht. How do you do it? And we want to be like you.
Hmm.
And our daughters said, just teach them, Mom. You love to teach. And this is a passion. So just do it. So
Yeah,
about 2 years ago, I said, well, what the heck? I have no idea what this personal brand stuff is all about. But I'm always game for learning. I'm kind of a learning junkie. So I dove into it and started learning how to do it. And here I am 2 years later. I've got an online course that's all developed and online for anybody to take. It's recorded. And I'm starting a mastermind right now and
excellent,
enrolling in people in
excellent.
that.
So what does living the dream really mean to you right now?
To me, and it's a very individual thing. So
Hmm.
I'll say for me, living the dream means that for one thing, I've got the energy and the vitality to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
So despite my age, I can still travel. I can carry my own bags. I can do all of that because I work out, I go to the gym, and I am a continual learner, so I'm able to take advantage of learning opportunities like taking Tony Robbins courses. We're going off to Fiji to one this summer, and traveling. And we love to travel. So a few days from now, we're leaving on a month-long trip to Scotland and Norway and taking a cruise over to the Svalbard Islands where the polar bears and the walruses live.
Yeah.
And that's living the dream. It's a small luxury cruise ship, and this is what we love to do. We get
Yeah.
to spend time with our family. Our oldest daughter and our three grandchildren live in Australia. So we fly off to Australia. We're doing that in July. So this is living the dream. We
Yeah.
work when we can and when we want to, but when we want to take off, we're able to do that because our businesses can sustain themselves without our direct involvement all the time.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, what I know you talk about entrepreneurs losing their freedom when they were chasing, when they were starting their businesses up.
Mm.
And what happens when they lose their freedom?
Well, what happened to us was that our health was declining.
Hmm.
We weren't exercising, we weren't eating right, and we were
Hmm.
exhausted. So we could see that this would not be very good for us. Our family life was suffering. Our relationship was suffering. When the business owns you, what happens to you?
Yeah.
You don't have time for yourself. There's
Yeah.
what's self care? I mean, you know, getting 6 hours of sleep, that sounds like a luxury.
Yeah. Sleep is
So
an important thing. That's
yeah,
definitely. And I think what you hit on a little bit earlier is that every person has their own view of what their dream life looks like. And so it's,
right.
that journey of getting to discover that, what does that look like?
Yeah, and people have to define that for themselves.
Hmm.
Does it mean being able to do yoga for 2 hours every day, or go off fishing? Whatever. What does it mean to you?
Yeah.
Some people have young children, so they want to
Yeah.
have more time with their young children, and that's all important stuff. But it depends on the individual.
Yeah. What's something you used to believe about success that you had to unlearn in order
Mhm.
to find more freedom?
Yeah. Well, the age old, you have to work hard
Yeah,
to be
definitely.
successful.
That's definitely a big one. I
Yeah.
believe that.
I mean, you put in long hours and you work hard, and then maybe someday you'll be successful. And
Yeah.
that's a myth.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know a lot of your work really ties around operations. So give us a bit of, you've got six principles. We can't go through all six of your principles, but give us like maybe your top two favorites that really make a difference.
Yeah. Number one is systems. You have
Hmm.
to have some kind of systems. Systems is what frees you to be able to do other things besides
Hmm.
the
Yeah,
minutia.
definitely.
I used to have this title of like, oh, Ral, you're the queen of minutia. I'm like, ooh, ooh, I don't want to be the queen of minutia. That just sounds terrible. And it sounds like that's, tying me down. So
Right.
I need to have the systems, whether it's automation or delegating, virtual assistants, whatever it is, to get
Yeah.
out of the minutia. I'd much rather be the one who floats above and sees the big picture than
Yeah.
being buried in the minutia.
Yeah.
So systematizing whatever kind of organization you have, even if you're a solopreneur, you still can have systems. I mean, I use systems in my personal life all the time.
Yeah.
So that's
So
very
give us
important.
examples of systems you use in your personal life.
Well, the primary one is that I have an app that's called a task manager,
Hmm.
and I've been using it for over 10 years. So it's not the latest and greatest with all the, maybe there's others that have better bells and whistles, but it really works and does the job for me. And it's called OmniFocus.
Okay.
And it's like a repository of everything I need to remember to do.
Hmm.
Everything from taxes to medical appointments to birthdays and Christmas to the important meetings, when I need to follow up on something, communications with my finance people, my CPAs, all of the people that I work with. That is where everything gets kept track of,
Right.
and I can
So
set up.
in a central place too, right? It's all things life.
Yes, and it syncs with all of my devices. I have like 4, 5, whatever, how many devices, and they all sync together.
Right.
And
Right.
so I can pick up any device and know exactly, okay, what is it that I'm supposed to be focused on today?
Good.
And I use it to prioritize, because we can often get distracted
Yeah.
by things that are like, oh, I need to do this. But then you have to ask yourself, do you really need to do it now?
Hmm.
And you part of the systematizing is learning to prioritize so that you're doing the things that need to be done today,
Right.
and then the other
Right.
things can wait.
How do
Um,
you how do you start your days? What are the things you do to start your days?
well, I'm sure that there are coaches that say this is the wrong way to do it, but it works for me, so I'm still
Hmm.
doing it. I
Yep.
pick up my phone and I take a look. What's on the docket for today? I look in OmniFocus. I look at my calendar. Well, actually, my calendar is replicated in OmniFocus, so I can see
Okay.
my appointments when I
Okay.
look at the day, and then I assess. Are those really the priorities that I want for the day? Sometimes I change things around and say, okay, no, that one can wait.
Yeah.
And if you have a day that's chock full of appointments and meetings like I have today, you can't also have 20 tasks that you get done, because you can't have 10 meetings and 20 tasks and get them
Right.
all done
Right.
in one day. So you have to, be able to juggle that.
Yeah.
And I look at my emails and my social media and see what is rising to the top in terms of, okay, these are the priorities, these are the things that I need to handle today.
Very
And
good. Very
yeah.
good. So that's so the systemization is one important principle. What's another one?
Using data, track
Mm,
your data, whatever way you want to say it, and
right.
have measurements, have tracking reports, so that whatever the KPIs or key performance indicators are for your business, make sure that you can track them so that you know how you're doing. And
Yeah.
it takes a little bit of time to figure out what KPIs you really need to track. Sometimes
Hmm.
we get a little distracted by measuring the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And
What are some? I mean, so are they going to be different for every business? I mean, every business is going to have a different set, or are there some that are very standard that all businesses should have?
well, I think finances,
Right.
every business should track that, and your sales. But on finances, there's a distinction there too. In the very early years for me, I was tracking my sales
Hmm.
and I was looking at my revenue and I was saying, yeah, but I just am not making enough money because I'm not paying my bills. I don't
Hmm.
have. And I hired a coach to help me with that. And she says, well, clearly you know how to make money, but you're just not making any profit. So I
Right.
was measuring the top line when I needed to be measuring the bottom
The
line.
bottom line. Yeah.
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 So, yes, make sure that you're measuring the right thing.
Yeah. No,
And I
that
think,
makes so much sense.
yeah, I think
That.
we can get a little off track if we get all excited about, oh, look at my
Yeah.
first revenue. But what's your
Yeah.
profit?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. So the mindset side of this. I mean, when as
Mm.
you work with clients, how does mindset come into play with this?
Oh, it's everything.
Yeah.
I really think it is. I
Yeah.
mean, um, people have often asked me, how is it that you've been able to be successful in so many different industries and so many different types of businesses over the years? And for one thing, I think that it's the belief that I can.
Hmm.
Some people will say, "Oh, well, you were in the, doing the airline thing, so why would you think that you could do cruise ships?" And my response was, "Well, why would I think I couldn't?"
Yeah. So
That
really believing in yourself and
Yeah, and knowing that there are principles that can be applied across the board. There are some,
hmm
Buckminster Fuller would call them generalized principles.
hmm
So if it's a generalized principle, it doesn't matter what business you're applying it to, it will work.
yeah.
So knowing the difference, and I've heard stories about people who were really successful in one kind of business, started another and were a total flop. Well, maybe they weren't applying the principles. Maybe they were
Hmm.
doing the same things, but maybe
Kind of
that's not.
going back to that bowl analogy, right? Is you can put
Mhm.
different things inside the bowl, but that bowl foundation is the same.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
just, take a look at what you need for this particular business and see if it fits to a particular principle, but maybe your tactics need to be different.
Yeah.
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 So I think, yes, having confidence, having faith, having the willingness to take a risk.
Yeah.
That's a huge mindset thing. And there's so many people who would like to be an entrepreneur, but it's like, oh, but I need to make so much money. I can't give up my W-2 job until I cover the income. And it's like, okay, well, that's fine, but you're never going to make room
Right.
for,
You've got to have space to really be able to think big and to work on your business and not
yeah,
just in your business, that sort of thing.
yeah. There's a
Um,
saying that, the universe loves a vacuum. So if you don't provide a vacuum, nothing can move in.
yeah.
You've got your
Yeah.
space filled.
That's a good analogy. For the woman entrepreneur who's listening, who's feeling buried in the weeds, right?
Mm,
You know, we all everyone can get buried in the weeds in their businesses. What's one
absolutely.
thing she can do to turn things around?
Well, take a look at what you're actually doing, what your tasks are, and ask yourself if someone else could do that for you.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You know,
Yeah,
and,
get it off
and
of your plate and kind of,
yeah, I
and
mean,
so that you can focus on the bigger picture.
maybe there's automation that can help you. I mean,
Hmm.
AI, it
Yeah.
has many, many
Oh my
tools.
gosh, isn't that amazing what it's been able to do for us? I mean, I
Oh my
think what my team can get done today is so much more than what we could have done 2 years ago because
God,
just
my
the
God.
technology has changed everything.
Yeah, and if you're not keeping up with it, you're behind.
Yeah.
So get with it. You know,
Yeah.
so
Definitely agree with that. Definitely agree with that.
yeah. And it's not that hard these days to get a virtual assistant for even
No.
just a few hours a week to
Yeah.
take some things off your plate. Make sure that you're outsourcing what you can, your bookkeeping or, some of your correspondence. Get some help with managing your emails. I hired a person to help me get an AI tool to
Hmm.
organize my email inbox because I found I was spending like an hour or two a day just sifting through stuff. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is just crazy. And
Yeah.
I spent a little bit of money getting this tool and I'm saving myself at least an hour a day.
Yeah. It's amazing. I was just talking the other day about doing this podcast. What used to take my team about 5 hours to produce the show on the backside of an interview, I think takes less than 2 hours at this point. And so it's amazing what tools can help us be much more efficient in
Yeah.
what we put out into the world.
Yeah. But you do have to kind of stop what you're doing
Hmm.
and assess how
Yes.
you're spending your time.
Yeah.
You're not going to get out of the weeds and the doing this and being overwhelmed unless you can
Unless you
just stop
pause.
and say, okay,
Yeah.
wait a minute. And you need to be able to be somewhat objective
Yeah.
about how you look at how you're spending your time.
Excellent. I love that. I love it. So, where can our listeners learn more about you and your work?
Many places. You could start with LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I have a lot of material on LinkedIn. I have a weekly newsletter that I'd love to have more subscribers to. I have a YouTube channel, and they're all really easy. Just Ral West. It's not anything complicated. Just
Yeah.
look for Ral
You're
West.
easy to find. If you got a
Yeah,
name like mine, that's easy to find.
yeah. And my website is also Ral West. So
Hmm.
those three things: LinkedIn, YouTube, and website are all Ral West. Subscribe to YouTube. Subscribe to the LinkedIn newsletter. Go on my website, and I have a free webinar. I'm starting the mastermind. You can find out about that. I'd love to have business owners who are ready for a change, who
Hmm.
want more freedom in their
Hmm.
life, come
Hmm.
join the mastermind. I'm looking for just a few really special entrepreneurs to fill this mastermind.
Excellent. Excellent. And then the final question I always close with are what are three pearls of wisdom you'd like to leave with my audience today?
Oh wow. Okay. Well, I always like to say, do not limit yourself. Don't let your age, your gender, or anything else put you in a box and make you deselect yourself from just going for it. Do
Excellent.
whatever you want to do. Go for
Excellent.
it. Believe in yourself. You can have it all.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah. So, others would, I think we've already talked about just having confidence and having faith in yourself and being willing to take some risks.
Yeah. Yeah. And step into the spaces that make you feel uncomfortable because that's where the growth happens.
Yeah, yeah. And, embrace mistakes. Don't be
Hmm.
afraid of mistakes. I mean, I've had some of my best education from the mistakes that I've made. Maybe very expensive education, but nevertheless.
Haven't we all? Haven't we all? I love it. Well, Ral, it's been awesome to meet you and hear some of your story. Thank you for joining us today and sharing all your good wisdom.
Well, thank you, Cami. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.